All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe Imbriano. It's Friday afternoon. We're having a midday session here, so I want to give it just a moment. This is an odd time for me to be on, but I've got an important message for my audience. All right, let's make sure we have a good signal here before I get into it. You're on. Okay. Notifications going out. Let's see what happens here. Looks like we got a trickle going. All right. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening or good morning, wherever you are in the world. And I know the audience reaches the four corners. And I want to thank you for all your communication and correspondence. And to a special listener out there, I can assure you that what has been sent is going into the right hands, just as you have requested. The contact information: P.O. Box 4121, Fullerton, California 92834. Joe Imbriano 777 at gmail.com. On the web at thefullertoninformer.com and wifidangers.com. All right, folks, the topic for this afternoon's introduction to the matter at hand is light. You know, anybody that knows me personally knows that I am an avid gardener, and my father was an Italian immigrant who thought he struck gold when he came to the best climate in the world in Southern California, with some of the most fertile soil anywhere in Garden Grove, which basically got all of its nutrient density from the Santa Ana River overflowing its banks throughout millennia, depositing all of the silt and all of the organic matter that turned into metropolitan Orange County's concrete jungle. But he had about a 7,700 square foot plot of land with a house on it. And as children, we got to see tomato plants that were bigger than us, with tomatoes the size of my hand, and pasta. Not that wheat's good for you, but that's what he ate. And long and short of it, he's not around anymore, mostly due to the polio vaccine that he was given on Ellis Island in the early 60s that was contaminated with SV40 that gave him the adenocarcinoma that took his life. But lighting is extremely important, folks. And the reason I go into this is because as an avid gardener that I learned from my father at a young age, and I inherited this green thumb. Some say I have several green thumbs. I believe I have 10 green thumbs, one on each finger. Because everything I touch grows. Because I know how to grow it, folks. And let me tell you something. Plants do not grow in the wrong spectrum or frequency of light. That is a fact, and you can ask anybody that has any commercial growing operation. Now, here is a problem, though, folks. And I want to go into this very carefully. This is a very serious problem, because the situation is that unless you have the right frequency of light, when you eat the food that was produced under that frequency of light, you're going to eat the wrong petrified version of that light frequency. How many of you have sat in front of a campfire and noticed the color of the log? Well, I have. For years I have, in the glowing red embers that ensue after the wood is long gone. But it's orange, ladies and gentlemen. You see, wood is carbon. Wood has been formed by the removal of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through a process called photosynthesis in the presence of water and various minerals and heat. And obviously the evapotranspiration process that moves everything up through the trunk and the stem into the leaves. But the deal is the color rendering index of the log burning is the same as the sun that gave it its energy. So, for lack of a better explanation in oversimplistic terms, but nonetheless completely accurate, wood is petrified light, folks. And the food you're eating is petrified light, ladies and gentlemen, assuming it's, you know, plant or vegetable. So would it logically follow that if it's grown under fake lights, that it doesn't have the nutritional benefits that it should? Well, that's an absolute fact, ladies and gentlemen, and that's what's so scary about what we face. Because a majority of the food today is grown in greenhouses under artificial lighting. And, you know, there's an old saying, you can't improve on God. And I totally wholeheartedly agree with that. And I know that the tomatoes I get out of my backyard, even though they may not look as picture perfect as the genetically modified greenhouse tomatoes that have lived on a chemical slurry inside a foreign country's growing operation, they may not look that perfect, but they sure taste better because they were grown in the sun and they were sun ripened. And now I don't want to hear about the chemtrails. I know they're a problem. They're everywhere. Well, you know, there's only so much we can do. One battle at a time here, folks, but I'm not going to resort to eating frankenfruit and franken vegetables from the store if I can do my best to grow most of my own. And the point I'm getting at is I don't care how ugly a tomato looks, as long as it's grown outside in the real sun, it's much better than the one that's grown in the fake greenhouse. I don't care how that one looks in the greenhouse. I don't care how pretty it is or how round it is or how there's no blemishes on it. I don't care how no bugs got to it. To be honest with you, I'll eat the stupid bugs because they're protein. I've had plenty of tomato worms in my salad over the years. I've had plenty of cabbage moth worms in my salad over the years. I'm not worried about eating the bugs. As a matter of fact, the fact that there's a bug on my plant means it's a healthy plant, because my garden is a biosphere, and if you catch it with the right lighting on a good day, you can see spider webs and gnats and cabbage moths, and certain times of the year you'll see the termites flying around as they emerge from their subterranean paradise that they hibernate in for months at a time. And you can see the ants and the earthworms and the earwigs, and then at night you can see the lacewigs and the garden spiders. Look, folks, there is nothing like the real thing. And all this fake food grown under fake light is going to make you sick, and let me tell you why. Because the fake food under fake light that's been genetically modified, or even the hybrid versions, are living on a diet, a steady diet of chemical fertilizer and soil balancing pH balancing chemicals for the water. They're not grown in soil, they're grown in a soilless medium. A lot of it is a rock wool made of volcanic ash and volcanic rock. That's right. These plants are being grown in a rock wool, in a chemical slurry environment, not in dirt. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the dirt in my backyard is alive. And as a matter of fact, if you dig it up and all the composting that takes place over the years, over and over and over again, it gets more and more alive, because the more organic matter you add to the soil, or the pots for that matter, the more alive the soil becomes. And if you dig it up, it's amazing what you will find in the soil. If you stick your hand in the composter, it is amazing what you can find to feed the chickens. But if it's all in a greenhouse and it all comes in bottles and cans and is dumped in this river of chemicals that goes round and round and round and recirculated, what do you think ends up in your body? You see, these plants grown under the fake lights need extra boosts of fertilizer and chemical water balancing. It's not healthy, ladies and gentlemen, but we're being forced to eat this. Over the years, I've managed to figure out where I should put pots at certain times of the year to put certain things in it. I mean, I don't plant tomatoes in the shade in the summer. I don't care how hot it is and how big the tomato plants get. If the tomato plants don't get direct sunlight, they don't produce tomatoes. Why? Because the solar panels on the tomato plant, called the tomato leaves, do not get enough energy from the sun to produce the fruit. Now, how about the indoor dilemma, ladies and gentlemen? Let's talk about this, because this is really important. And I want you to remember something. Frequency is everything. Now, have you noticed that sometimes even a philodendron won't grow in your office? Well, I've managed to observe several phenomenon in different office buildings recently. And I have somebody who works in an office that has several different types of lighting systems in the office. And I've noticed, according to the reports from this individual, that the common philodendron houseplant that most people have on their desks that requires just a teeny bit of water and a little bit of coffee will not grow very well under 2700 degree Kelvin flat panel LED lights. That's right, they die. Now, that's supposed to be the new and fancy version of energy-saving incandescent substitutes, folks. These big flat panel lighting fixtures that are LED that are supposed to be 2700 Kelvin. That's the color temperature that they're supposed to be emitting at. And while there may be some doubt as to the accuracy of what's on the box when these are installed, I can certainly tell you that the flicker rate of those lights is no laughing matter. And I believe that's what's killing these plants, ladies and gentlemen, because these plants die under the flat panel. However, in the office building where this individual works, there is another section of the building that are being illuminated by an array of compact fluorescent lights. Now, these compact fluorescents are around 5,000 Kelvin, and that's the daylight spectrum. These philodendron plants do just fine. Now, in my home, I would like to speak to this, because in my home, we use nothing but incandescent and halogen light bulbs. That's right, we don't use LED lights in the home. We use the good old incandescent lights, and the incandescent lights range from 25 to 2700 Kelvin. That's the color temperature. And the halogens, same thing, right in that range. In some cases, the halogens, depending upon the ones I have, they're a little more yellow. But nonetheless, the philodendrons do just fine under that yellow light. But why is it under the same color temperature of an LED flat panel light they die? Well, that's a great question, ladies and gentlemen. One that I would say begs the question, and that is, what is it about the flicker rate in these LED lighting systems that is killing the houseplants? Think about that for just a moment, folks. Frequency is everything. Very concerning, to say the least. So, as the canary in the coal mine is described as being the guinea pig for the miners, I can tell you right now that the philodendron plant under the flat panel LED that's supposed to be warm lighting at 2700 Kelvin is dropping dead. What do you think it's doing to the human being below it? Well, that's another question. Did you know that every cell in your body has a photoreceptor? Did you know that there's a reason that every cell in your body has one? Because they're all sensitive to the circadian rhythm that occurs in our body's natural clock that's based on the light of day and the darkness of night and the times of the day and the times of the night. But what's more important is the eyes are the window not only just to the soul, but every cell in your body. Think about that for just a moment, folks. Think about that. You know, it's funny. Years ago, my wife and I were looking at homes when we first got married, and we found one we liked, and so we were taken to this for sale by owner. And so the owner of the home meets us at his home he's trying to sell us. And this man pulls up in his brand new BMW 740iL and gets out of the car and says, well, here it is, and opens the door for us and lets us walk around the house. Well, I didn't like the house, didn't have any trees, backed up to a street. But this guy proceeded to get out of his brand new car, and literally the thing was really shiny, really nice, brand new car, right? He gets out and starts wiping off the dust off this thing. And then he goes to open his mouth and smile at me when I said, can I have a look around the back? That door's locked, can you open it for me? He smiled at me, and I looked at all his teeth were rotten. You see, this guy was so concerned with the dust on his car, but never could manage to get to the dentist. This man was so consumed with his material possessions that he wasn't paying attention to what apparently he was putting in his mouth. Because whatever he was putting in his mouth over the years really did a job on his teeth. And this brings me to this point, folks. You got to look at what goes in your eyes. You got to watch the frequencies that goes in your eyes, folks. That's important stuff. Your eyes were not designed to run with bad light or evil light or dangerous light or fake light You know, light bulbs are bad enough, folks. Did you ever notice how the flicker of a fire just kind of soothing and relaxing, and that natural orange, you could just stare at it for hours? Because it's very easy on the eyes. You know, there's a lot of things that are easy on the eyes, folks. Beautiful trees, and plants, and scenery, and the blue sky. You know, those don't hurt your eyes. Did you ever notice how everywhere you go now, all the light bulbs hurt your eyes? That's because they've put these stupid LED lights in everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. They're horrible! They're a weapon, ladies and gentlemen. The LED lights are a weapon. LED lighting is an agenda, folks. It is an agenda. It is not something that is helping you. It is helping those that seek to destroy and control us. Food that you eat is petrified light, and if the light that it was grown under is the wrong color temperature, you can rest assured that the food you're eating has the wrong biological frequencies associated with it. And don't kid yourself, folks. Everything has a resonant frequency. And let me tell you something. That tomato that you pick, it's still alive. That watermelon that you pick, it's still alive. That watermelon's still photosynthesizing, even though it's not connected to the plant. That tomato's still alive. The plants are still alive when you pick them. Yeah, they may not be growing and expanding, but there's still metabolic activity taking place. But if the resonant frequencies are all screwed up because it was poisoned and messed with under the light that it was grown under, I can assure you it's doing the same thing to your body. Just because it's in the organic aisle doesn't mean it's safe, folks. And a lot of you are going to say, hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. What choice do I have? Well, you better start thinking about some choices, ladies and gentlemen. And for those of you who like to partake in a good bong rip here and there, and this is really important, because I know people that smoke marijuana on a regular basis, and I have nothing against what you're doing. That's your choice and your prerogative. I don't smoke marijuana, ladies and gentlemen, because I don't feel the need to escape reality. I deal with reality head on and face first. But to those of you who do, I can put this note of caution to you that most of the marijuana that is being grown now is being grown in pots with chemical fertilizers and soil conditioners indoors under fake lighting. And guess what happens when you smoke it? You're smoking chemicals, you're burning chemicals, you're breathing burned chemicals, and you're burning these chemicals under a plant that was grown under fake light. Now, if you're going to grow this stuff, then grow it the right way, folks, okay? That's all I'm saying. The same goes for the tobacco and everything else. You don't know what you're getting. My dad always told me, son, if you want something done right, do it yourself. And he wasn't kidding. Whether it was mechanic work or gardening or painting or home repair, whatever, he always managed to do things himself. And quite frankly, it turned out the best when he was involved. But what I'm getting back to here is the light frequency is everything. Now, how does this tie into what's going on with Bill Gates and his global dimming program that he's working on with his college buddies from you know, this Ivy League school that's got all the creeps working in it? Well, you know, Gates has funded this plan to send up a balloon up into the stratosphere, into the ozone layer, and spray a bunch of calcite and sulfur particles around in the upper atmosphere. And I've talked about this on another video. And it just so happens they're choosing an altitude to study the effects of this powder's ability to globally dim the sun, right? That's the those are the auspices under which this program is being sold to us as a possible scientific experiment. Ladies and gentlemen, no such thing is taking place. Let me tell you what is taking place. You see, when you take calcite in the presence of impurities like phosphorus, and you expose that to ultraviolet light, which just so happens to be plentiful in the stratosphere and at the elevation they're going to conduct this at, in the presence of UVB, which is plentiful at the altitude they're going to conduct this experiment at, you get what's called fluorescence in these particles. And when you fluoresce, you change the color. And guess what, folks? You know, orange and blue and red and purple and green are not supposed to be the colors of the sky. What are they working on, ladies and gentlemen? They're going to change the color rendering index of the sky. They're going to change the color temperature of the light that reaches us here on the ground. That's the agenda. I'm urging all of you to get into position to where you get accustomed to dealing with nothing but good, natural, warm, incandescent light in your home. Get rid of all this fake crap immediately and go back to the basics on the lighting, because there will come a time where even being outside isn't going to do the trick. I also strongly recommend that all of you out there invest in something that will allow your body to be exposed to UVB in moderate amounts, because there will come a time where that UVB is going to be absorbed by the calcite and the phosphorus and the sulfur they're going to put up there. And that's also the goal, folks, is to block the UVB that is life-giving. Although it's dangerous in high quantities, it is an absolute biological and metabolic necessity at the levels prescribed by daylight exposure that occur naturally in a normal, healthy, active human being. Anytime they tell you they're up to something for this reason, it's always the opposite, folks. They're not going to tell you what they're involved in. Now, if you want to take a look at what they're really up to, pull out Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, one of their album sleeves. You can see all these different fluorescent piezoelectric compounds that are giving off different frequency color emissions. You know, back in 1986, they were putting out Tesla girls and that electromagnetic coil around the girl's lips that was supposed to resemble the current microwave sterilization via the wireless deployment in the laps of the children today. And that's what we face, ladies and gentlemen. That is what is going on. That is exactly what is going on. And what we face now is nothing more than an extension of the Manhattan Project. It's never died. It's just changed the spectrum on which it operates. It's gone from ionizing to non-ionizing. And they're still at it, ladies and gentlemen. They're still at it, okay? They've never stopped. I digress. Well, listen, messing with light frequency, folks, is not a good thing, and stop doing it to yourself in your house. It's bad enough they've got you in front of these big TVs, you know, spraying you with blue and white light at all hours of the night, microwave radiation because it's all wireless, all hours of the day and night, and then they've got your food grown under these grow lamps. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, look, you've got to get with this program and wake up. You've got to find a way, because they're attacking the ultraviolet exposure that we're going to have access to. They're going to block out most of this if they have their way by spraying large amounts of these compounds. It's already taking place to an extent with the chemtrails. All right, the light frequency is changing, ladies and gentlemen. That's why when you go outside when under heavy spraying, it hurts your eyes. You must get prepared to start growing your own food that is not grown under fake light. You must understand some basic primitive concepts of human existence, like growing food, and go back to your basic instincts on how to get proper amounts of sunlight and full spectrum lighting exposure through your eyes all the time, because the stuff in the buildings is going to kill you. All right, that's a fact, ladies and gentlemen. The lighting inside these buildings is artificial, and as they move more and more towards energy efficiency, that also moves them more and more towards human eradication efficiency, because these lights can kill. It's a slow kill, folks. This is a very important broadcast, and once again, I want to just give a shout out to the sponsor of this program. It is Jesus Christ, folks, and God bless all of you, and have a good afternoon.